Patricia sat in the corner booth of Riverside Café tilde copyright, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting golden patterns across her table. She'd brought her sketchbook, thinking she might draw, but the pages remained blank. Christmas Eve had always been her favorite day of the year, but this year felt different. Her sister's family had flown to Florida to visit her brother-in-law's parents. Her close friends were all with their own families. At 58, Patricia had grown comfortable with solitude as she'd been deaf since childhood, and quiet had always been her companion. But today, the silence felt less like peace and more like absence. She watched the other patrons, a teenage couple sharing headphones, an elderly man reading the newspaper, and near the window, a father and his young son, perhaps 9 years old, working on what looked like a puzzle book together. The boy said something that made his father laugh, a genuine, warm laugh that created crinkles around his eyes. Patricia felt a pang of longing, not for what she couldn't hear, but for that kind of easy connection, that sense of belonging somewhere. The father looked to be in his mid-40s, with graying temples and a kind face. He wore a simple navy sweater, and there was something gentle in the way he guided his son's hand across the puzzle page, patient and encouraging. Patricia returned to her tea, trying not to stare. She'd learned long ago not to intrude on other people's moments, but something about their quiet companionship on Christmas Eve touched something deep inside her. She noticed the boy get up and head toward the restroom. The father pulled out his phone, scrolling absently, then set it down and simply gazed out the window. There was a weight to his expression, a not sadness exactly, but a thoughtful melancholy that Patricia recognized. She'd seen it in her own mirror often enough. Before she could second-guess herself, Patricia stood. Her heart hammered as she approached their table. The father looked up, startled at first, then curious. Patricia took a breath and began to sign, her hands moving with practiced grace. Then she realized that he might not understand. Most people didn't know ASL, but she'd come this far. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and typed, "I'm alone today. I saw you and your son, and you both seem so kind. Would it be okay if I joined you? I don't want to intrude. I'm deaf, but I can write back and forth if that's okay." She turned the phone toward him, her heart in her throat, half expecting him to politely decline. The father read the message carefully. Patricia watched his expression shift, a surprise, then something softer, understanding, perhaps. He looked up at her and smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Then he did something Patricia didn't expect. He began to sign. "Please, join us. We'd be happy to have you." Patricia's eyes widened. Her hands flew up almost involuntarily. "You know sign language?" He nodded, continuing to sign. "My name is Robert. My son, Danny, is hard of hearing. We've been signing since he was 3. Patricia felt tears prick her eyes. She signed back, "I'm Patricia." "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." "I think I do." Robert signed, his expression warm. "Please, sit down." She slid into the booth across from him just as Danny returned. The boy stopped, looking at Patricia with open curiosity but no alarm. Robert signed something to him, and Danny's face broke into a wide smile. "Hi." Danny signed enthusiastically. "I'm Danny. Do you like puzzles?" Patricia laughed, a sound she couldn't hear but could feel in her chest. "I love puzzles," she signed back. What followed was one of the most unexpected and beautiful afternoons of Patricia's life. They worked on Danny's puzzle book together, hands flying in conversation, laughing when they got stuck on particularly tricky riddles. Robert ordered more hot chocolate for Danny and fresh coffee for himself and Patricia. After a while, Robert shared their story. His wife had passed away 2 years ago, cancer, swift and merciless. She'd been the one who first learned sign language when Danny was diagnosed with progressive hearing loss. After she died, Robert had thrown himself into becoming fluent, determined to never let his son feel isolated or unheard. "It's just the two of us now," Robert signed. "We make it work. Some days are harder than others." "Like Christmas," Patricia signed. understanding in her eyes. Yes, like Christmas. Patricia shared her own story. Never married. A career as a graphic designer that she'd loved but recently retired from. A life that had been full and meaningful, but sometimes lonely, especially on holidays. I spent so many years telling myself I was fine alone, she signed. And I am. But fine isn't the same as happy. Robert nodded slowly. I know exactly what you mean. Danny tugged on his father's sleeve, signing something quickly. Robert smiled and turned to Patricia. He wants to know if you'd like to see the drawing he made at school. He's very proud of it. I'd love to. Patricia signed. Danny pulled a folded paper from his backpack, a crayon drawing of a Christmas tree surrounded by people holding hands. At the top, in careful child's writing, family is people who care. Patricia felt her throat tighten. She looked at Danny and signed. This is beautiful. You're a wonderful artist. The boy beamed. As the afternoon stretched into early evening, the Café copyright began to empty. The owner, a kind woman named Ruth, came by to check on them. Robert explained in spoken words which Patricia could read on his lips so that they'd just met but were having a lovely time. Ruth smiled at Patricia. Any friend of Robert and Danny's is welcome here anytime, she said slowly, making sure Patricia could read her lips. Patricia nodded her thanks, touched by the kindness. When they finally prepared to leave, Robert signed something to Danny, who nodded eagerly. Then Robert turned to Patricia. We're going home to make dinner, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and probably too much garlic bread. Would you join us? If you don't have other plans, that is. We'd really like the company. Patricia hesitated only a moment. She thought of her empty apartment, the frozen meal waiting in her freezer, the television she'd probably fall asleep in front of. Then she thought of the afternoon she'd just had. The laughter, the connection, the feeling of being truly understood. I'd love to, she signed. Thank you. Danny cheered, jumping up and down, and Robert's smile was warmer than the Café copyright's heating. As they walked together through the evening streets, the streetlights just beginning to glow, a few early stars appearing overhead, Patricia felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She felt chosen, wanted, like she belonged. Danny walked between them, occasionally signing something funny that made them all laugh. Patricia watched Robert's face, saw the grief there that would probably never fully heal, but also saw the determination to keep living, keep loving, keep opening his heart despite the risk of loss. She understood that determination. She'd lived it herself. At their modest apartment, Robert made good on his promise of spaghetti and garlic bread. Danny set the table carefully, adding an extra place for Patricia with obvious pride. They ate together, conversing in sign, sharing stories and jokes. Patricia helped with dishes while Danny showed her his room, his collections of rocks and books and small treasures. As the evening grew late, Patricia prepared to leave. She signed to both of them, thank you for the most unexpected, most wonderful Christmas Eve I could have imagined. Thank you. Robert signed back, for being brave enough to ask, for reminding us that family doesn't have to be what we lost to, it can also be what we find. Danny hugged her tightly, and Patricia felt tears slip down her cheeks. On the walk home, her phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Danny wanted me to tell you you're invited to Christmas dinner tomorrow. No pressure, but we'd love to have you. You're part of our family now, if you want to be. Patricia stopped on the sidewalk, reading the message 3 times. She thought about all the years she'd spent protecting herself, keeping walls up, telling herself she preferred independence to vulnerability. And she thought about a father and son who'd made room at their table for a stranger, who'd signed welcome with open hearts. She typed back, I'll bring dessert. Thank you for seeing me. His response came quickly, thank you for letting us. Patricia walked the rest of the way home with a lightness in her step. Tomorrow she'd bake her famous apple pie. Tomorrow she'd spend Christmas with her new family. Unexpected, imperfect, and absolutely perfect. She'd been brave enough to sign those words in the Café copyright, I'm alone. Can I join you? And someone had been brave enough to answer, yes, please. Sometimes, Patricia thought, the best gifts come from the courage to admit we need connection, and the grace to offer it freely when someone asks.